The corridors of the military hospital were too clean to feel alive. The air smelled faintly of alcohol and something metallic, a reminder that here, even healing obeyed discipline. Iris Rowe moved through the hallway with a tray balanced on her arm, the small bottles clinking softly with each step. Her sneakers made no sound against the polished floor, yet every echo of the overhead lights seemed to follow her. She paused outside room 17 and exhaled quietly before pushing the door open. Inside, sunlight filtered through half-closed blinds, cutting the room into pale stripes of gold and gray. A woman sat near the window, posture so straight that the chair seemed made for her spine. Her cropped hair caught the light, a sharp glint against the white walls. The hospital shirt hung loose around her shoulders, but the muscles beneath refused to surrender their form. Riley Ivers. The name was printed on the clipboard, but Iris already knew it. The young officer who refused most assistance, the one who asked to walk alone, the one every nurse warned her about. Riley didn't turn when the door clicked shut. Her voice came low, calm, precise. "You are late." Iris checked the clock, then the tray. 2 minutes, she answered softly. Hardly a battlefield delay. The officer finally looked over her shoulder. Her gaze was sharp enough to stop motion, not angry, only deliberate. 2 minutes cost lives where I come from. Iris set the tray down on the side table. And in here, they cost infection, she replied. The tone was light, almost conversational, but she didn't look away. The air thickened, but only for a heartbeat. Riley's mouth curved faintly, not a smile, more a sign of recognition. Then her attention shifted back to the window. Outside, trees swayed in a rhythm too free for this place. Iris followed her gaze for a moment before speaking again. "How's the pain today?" "Manageable." The word came clipped, stripped of any emotion. Iris wrote it down anyway. She had learned that in places like this, silence was another kind of defense. When she approached the bed, Riley straightened even more, as if preparing for inspection. "I don't need help lying down," she said. "I'm sure you don't," Iris replied, keeping her tone gentle. "But your ribs might argue otherwise." Riley turned fully now. The pale light caught her eyes, gray and steady, like storm clouds that refused to move. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, with deliberate grace, she reached for the edge of the bed. Her hand trembled almost imperceptibly. The effort tightened her jaw, and a flicker of pain passed through her composure. Iris stepped closer, her instinct stronger than caution. "Careful," she murmured. "I said I can manage." "I heard you." She stayed still, only inches away, waiting. Riley exhaled through her nose, slow and measured, and finally lowered herself onto the mattress. The sheets shifted under her weight. Her breath caught once, then steadied. Iris waited until she was sure the officer was settled before reaching for the medical kit. "I'm going to check the wound," she said quietly. "Proceed." The bandages were still firm, but the edge near her side had darkened slightly. Iris peeled them back with small, precise movements. Beneath, the skin showed the aftermath of healing, red, swollen, beginning to knit yet still angry. Riley didn't flinch, though her hands gripped the blanket. "You should rest more," Iris said. "I rest enough." Her reply sounded like a verdict. Iris looked at her profile, the stubborn line of her mouth. "Everyone needs rest," she said. Riley's eyes flicked toward her for a second, sharp again. Iris didn't back down. She pressed lightly around the wound, testing the tension of the stitches, then began cleaning with slow strokes. The smell of antiseptic filled the room. "You breathe too shallowly," Iris murmured. "That makes healing slower." "I breathe how I need to." "You breathe like someone's still waiting for orders." The words slipped out before Iris could stop them. Riley froze, her eyes cutting toward her again, unreadable. For a moment, the silence was louder than the hum of the fluorescent light. Then, instead of answering, Riley turned her gaze back to the window. Iris finished wrapping the new bandage, her fingers brushing the edge of Riley's skin only once. The contact was brief but electric, a jolt that neither of them acknowledged aloud. When she tied the final knot, she stepped back. Done. Riley adjusted her shirt, hiding the white strip of gauze beneath. Her expression was unreadable again, carved back into composure. Efficient, she said simply. I try. She began gathering the used materials into the disposal bag. The rhythm of the task steadied her hands, though her mind still lingered on that moment when discipline had cracked into humanity. You're younger than I expected, Riley said suddenly. Iris glanced up. Does that disappoint you? Riley considered, then shook her head. No, just surprising. Surprises are good for recovery. A faint exhale, almost a laugh, escaped the officer, so soft Iris wasn't sure she heard it. She smiled to herself and carried the tray toward the door. Before leaving, she paused. I'll be back in the morning, she said. Riley didn't turn, but her voice followed, quieter this time. Be punctual. The words could have sounded cold, yet something in the way they lingered felt almost like permission. Iris nodded once, though the other woman couldn't see it, and stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind her with a muted click. She leaned briefly against the wall, tray pressed to her chest. Her pulse was steady, but her thoughts weren't. She had met soldiers before, proud, closed, unreachable. But there was something different about Riley Ivers. Beneath that iron posture was a silence that looked too heavy to carry alone. Iris walked down the hall, the scent of antiseptic following her like a faint echo. She tried to focus on her next patient, on the list of tasks waiting in the chart, but her mind kept circling back to the image of Riley sitting by the window, shoulders straight, eyes fixed on something invisible outside. That night, as she filled her notes, Iris found her handwriting slower, less controlled. She wrote the fact temperature normal, wound stable, patient alert, but beneath it, her pen hesitated before adding one line she knew she shouldn't write. Patient shows resistance to care, but not to kindness. She stopped, stared at the words, then crossed out the last phrase, though the ink still showed through faintly. Outside, the hospital settled into its night rhythm, machines humming softly, footsteps fading down distant corridors. Iris closed the folder, placed it neatly on the desk, and turned off the lamp. For a moment she stood by the window, watching the lights across the city blink like scattered stars. Somewhere in that maze of brightness, another woman sat in silence, refusing rest, refusing help, holding her breath as if the world might break if she let it go. Iris whispered to the glass, barely audible even to herself. You don't have to fight it alone. Then she walked away, unaware that down the corridor, behind a half-closed door, Riley Ivers had not yet fallen asleep. Her eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, and though no one could see it, her chest rose just a little deeper than before. Morning light poured into the rehabilitation hall, soft and uninvited. It carried the smell of linen and soap, an air too sterile to hide the pulse of exhaustion that ran through the ward. Iris Rowe walked toward the far end of the corridor, clipboard pressed to her chest. Her sneakers moved in rhythm with the hum of fluorescent lights. When she entered Riley Ivers' room, she found the officer already sitting upright on the bed, eyes on the floor as if planning an unseen route. You're early, Riley said without looking up. I couldn't sleep, Iris replied. I thought we'd start before the hall gets busy. Riley adjusted her shoulders, the motion small but disciplined. Fine. Let's get this over with. Iris didn't comment on the impatience. She brought over a pair of crutches adjusted to Riley's height, setting them beside the bed. You'll use these for balance. I'll stay close. Riley's brow lifted slightly. You think I'm going to fall? I think gravity doesn't care about rank, Iris said, her tone almost teasing. For a brief moment, something close to amusement flickered in Riley's eyes, then vanished. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed, her movements careful, each one measured. When she tried to stand, the air shifted, full of the silent weight of control. Iris stepped back half a pace, giving her space, but ready if needed. Riley rose, breath steady but tight. Her right hand gripped the crutch with precision, while the left hovered uncertainly in the air before she found her balance. The first step came slow, the floor echoing faintly beneath the rubber tip. Her jaw tightened as she shifted weight to her injured side. "Slow down," Iris murmured. "I set the pace," Riley answered, though the words came through clenched teeth. The second step wavered. Her ribs tensed, a flash of strain crossing her face. Iris moved instinctively, hand at her waist, steadying her before the stumble became a fall. Riley froze, caught between pride and pain. Their eyes met for an instant, heat flickering beneath the surface. Then Riley exhaled sharply. "Let go." "You were about to hit the ground," Iris said softly. "I said let go." Iris did, but slowly, letting her fingers slide away, the contact breaking like a thread. Riley straightened again, breath ragged but controlled. The walk continued. The room filled only with the quiet scrape of the crutch and the shallow rhythm of Riley's breathing. Iris walked beside her, neither leading nor following, matching every motion. When they reached the far wall, Riley stopped, sweat glistening along her temple. She turned, one hand braced against the wall for support. "That's enough for today," Iris said gently. "Not yet." The words were soft, but they carried the weight of command. She took one more step, then another, until her body trembled from the effort. Iris caught her elbow again when her balance slipped, but this time Riley didn't push her away. She steadied herself, then nodded once, acknowledging the help without words. When they returned to the bed, Riley sat down slowly, chest rising and falling with the aftermath of motion. Iris handed her a towel. "Good work." Riley wiped her face, the smallest hint of frustration in her voice. "I don't need praise." "Then take it as observation," Iris said. "You did more than yesterday." Riley's eyes flicked upward, searching her face, then looked away. Observation noted. Later that afternoon, Iris came back to change the bandages. The room was quieter than before, the window half open to let in the faint scent of rain. Riley sat by the window again, her uniform shirt folded neatly on the table. Her torso was wrapped in white cloth, streaked faintly from earlier movement. "I told you to rest," Iris said softly. "I'm resting now." She moved closer, setting the fresh supplies down, her steps light to avoid disturbing the stillness. As she began unwrapping the bandage, Riley's gaze fixed on something far beyond the window. The skin beneath the gauze was warmer than before, the bruises fading into shades of violet and gold. Iris worked with care, dabbing gently, cleaning each line of the wound. Riley's breathing slowed, steady but shallow. "You tighten your shoulders when you breathe," Iris said, almost a whisper. "It's habit. Bad ones can be unlearned. That depends on the teacher." Her tone was quieter now, almost reflective. Iris smiled faintly, though she didn't lift her head. "Then let's start small. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Let your ribs move instead of your chest." Riley obeyed, reluctantly at first, then more naturally. The tension across her torso eased slightly. Iris could feel the change through her fingertips. "Better," she murmured. Riley's eyes dropped to her face, watching the focus in her movements. "You speak like someone used to giving orders." "Maybe," Iris said, her lips curving. "Only when someone forgets to listen." For the first time, Riley smiled. It was brief, unguarded, gone as soon as it appeared, but it left something softer behind. When the bandage was secure, Iris stepped back, wiping her hands. Riley reached for her shirt, sliding it on with slow precision. "You talk too much," she said. "Someone has to," Iris replied. "Otherwise, this room would drown in silence." Riley didn't answer. She stood by the window again, her profile outlined against the fading light. Iris gathered her tools, but her attention lingered on the curve of Riley's shoulders, the quiet strength that refused to admit pain. As she turned to leave, Riley's voice stopped her. "Why do you stay so calm when I push back?" Iris looked over her shoulder. "Because if I react, we both lose balance." Riley studied her, then nodded once, almost in respect. That night, the ward dimmed to a hush. Iris stayed later than usual, finishing reports by the small desk in the corner. Her thoughts drifted toward the officer's room more than once, toward the sound of crutches tapping on tile, toward the stubborn rhythm that had already imprinted itself on her mind. When she finally walked past the door to Riley's room, she noticed the faint light still on. Through the small window in the door, she saw Riley seated again by the window, chin resting on one hand, eyes distant. The open notebook lay on her lap, blank except for a few scattered words. Iris stood there for a heartbeat too long, then turned away. She told herself she wouldn't interfere, that some silences didn't need to be broken. Yet as she reached the end of the corridor, she heard a soft sound, 3 gentle knocks against the metal bed frame. A signal perhaps, or just restless thought. She smiled without meaning to, remembering the rhythm of their steps earlier that day. 2 beats, pause, then 2 again. Maybe that was how trust began, not with words, but with matching tempo. When she finally returned to her quarters, she felt the day still on her skin, the scent of antiseptic, the weight of a steadying hand, the echo of a woman trying to stand tall while her world tilted. Iris lay down, closed her eyes, and saw sunlight on white sheets, the flicker of a restrained smile, and the moment between fall and balance that neither of them would name. In the room at the end of the hall, Riley Ivers turned another blank page in her notebook. Her fingers hovered over the pen, then stopped. Instead of writing, she traced the rhythm of breath she had learned earlier that day. Inhale. Exhale. Slow and even. For the first time since the injury, her shoulders lowered on their own. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft enough to sound like breathing. By evening the sky had changed its mind. The day that began clear now pressed down with heavy clouds, a dull rumble of thunder echoing from far away. Iris Rowe looked up from her paperwork, feeling the air tighten as if the building itself was holding its breath. The fluorescent lights flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere down the hall, a window slammed shut. The nurses moved faster, voices low and practical. Iris closed her file and turned toward room 17. Riley Ivers had refused painkillers that morning, claiming she wanted her body to learn its limits. Iris had argued softly, then stopped when she saw that familiar look of resolve. She had learned that Riley's defiance was not arrogance, only fear wearing its uniform too long. As the first drops hit the glass, Iris felt a small pull in her chest, an urge she could not name. The rain thickened quickly. By the time she reached the door, the storm had begun in earnest. Light flashed outside, pale and sharp, and the sound of thunder followed almost immediately. Iris opened the door quietly, not wanting to startle her patient. Riley was sitting on the edge of the bed, her crutches leaning against the wall. She wore only the undershirt of her uniform, the fabric clinging to her skin from the heat that storms always carried before they broke. Her eyes were fixed on the window, where water streamed down the glass like veins of silver. "You should lie down," Iris said softly. Riley didn't turn. "I'm fine. The power may go out. It would be better if you rested before." The lights flickered again. Then they died, leaving the room in sudden darkness except for the dim emergency glow that bled in from the hallway. Iris set the tray she carried on the side table and waited for her eyes to adjust. Riley's silhouette was sharp against the faint light. She hadn't moved, only tightened her posture as if bracing for something. The air smelled of ozone and damp air. "I'll change your bandages before the backup lights switch off," Iris said, keeping her voice steady. "You don't have to." "I know," Iris answered, pulling on gloves by feel. "But it will make you more comfortable." Riley gave a small nod, barely visible. She lifted her arm, allowing access to her ribs. The old gauze was damp from sweat, edges curling away from the skin. Iris peeled it back slowly, careful not to tear the new tissue underneath. Her fingers worked gently, guided more by intuition than sight. Lightning flashed, white and unforgiving. For an instant, it painted Riley's face in stark contrast: the high cheekbones, the faint scar near her jaw, the strength held too tightly in every line. Then darkness returned, softening everything. When Iris pressed the warm cloth against her side, Riley inhaled sharply. Not pain exactly, but surprise. The temperature difference, the sudden intimacy of the touch, made her flinch before she caught herself. "Sorry," Iris whispered. Riley shook her head once. "It's fine. Just cold." The rain grew heavier, drumming against the window in relentless rhythm. Iris continued cleaning the wound, her movements slow, deliberate. The sound of the storm filled every space between them, leaving no room for words. "You should ease your breathing," Iris said eventually. "You hold it when I touch the stitches." "I am breathing." "Barely." Riley turned her head, eyes glinting faintly in the dark. "I'm not used to someone watching this close." "I'm not watching," Iris said quietly. "I'm here to help." "Same thing." The reply came softer than before, almost thoughtful. Iris didn't answer. She dipped the cloth again, wrung out the water, and brushed along the curve of Riley's ribs. The skin there was warm, trembling under her hand. Thunder cracked outside, louder this time, shaking the window. Riley flinched before she could stop herself, one hand gripping the edge of the bed. Iris reached out instinctively, placing her palm against her shoulder to steady her. "It's only noise," Iris said. Riley's muscles tensed beneath her touch, but she didn't pull away. Her breath came uneven, chest rising faster now. The space between them felt charged, fragile, full of something neither had planned. "You don't have to fight me," Iris said quietly. "I'm not the enemy." Riley's gaze snapped toward her, intense and searching. For a moment she looked ready to speak, but no words came. Her throat worked, then she looked down. "I know," she murmured. The storm's rhythm slowed for a heartbeat, as if listening. Iris finished the new bandage and tied it gently in place. When she moved to step back, Riley reached for the glass of water on the table, but her hand trembled before she could lift it. Without thinking, Iris caught her wrist and guided the glass to her lips. Riley drank, eyes locked on her the entire time. When Iris lowered the glass, their hands didn't separate right away. The contact lingered, soft but grounding. Lightning flashed again, filling the room with white light. The brief illumination showed every detail: the curve of Riley's mouth, the tension in her shoulders, the faint rise of color in her cheeks. Her hand tightened around Iris's wrist. "Don't leave," she said, voice low, almost broken. The request startled Iris more than the thunder ever could. "I won't," she whispered. For a second, nothing moved. The storm outside roared, the walls hummed with its vibration, and between them the air seemed to hold its breath. Then Riley's eyes dropped, tracing the outline of Iris's face, lingering on her lips before finding her gaze again. There was fear there, and something else, a hunger that wasn't physical, a search for proof that she was still human enough to need someone. Iris leaned closer, unsure which of them began to move first. Their foreheads brushed, then the space between them vanished. The kiss was tentative at first, uncertain, a collision of restraint and need. Riley's hand slid to the back of Iris's neck, pulling her closer. The touch wasn't practiced, but desperate, like she was trying to remember how warmth felt. When they broke apart, both were breathing fast. Riley's eyes were wide, her voice rough. "I hate this," she said. "I hate needing anyone." Iris's pulse hammered in her throat, but her tone stayed calm. "You don't need me, Riley. You chose me." The silence that followed was heavy but alive. The rain softened to a steady whisper against the glass. Riley closed her eyes, her grip loosening, but not leaving. The tension in her shoulders eased just slightly, as though the act of confession had taken something out of her. Iris stayed beside her, not speaking, not moving away. The emergency light flickered once more, painting their shadows on the wall, two outlines blurred into one. When the power finally returned, the overhead lights buzzed back to life. Riley blinked at the sudden brightness, then turned toward the window again. "You should go before someone notices." Iris nodded slowly, removing her gloves, dropping them into the bin. "Get some rest," she said softly. Riley didn't answer. Her hand brushed the edge of the blanket, restless. As Iris reached the door, a faint voice stopped her. "Thank you." The word was barely audible, yet it carried more weight than any command Riley had ever given. Iris paused, her back to the room, and smiled faintly. "You're welcome." When she stepped into the corridor, the storm was already fading. Puddles gleamed under the hallway lights, and the air smelled of clean rain. She walked slowly, her pulse still echoing the rhythm of thunder, aware that something had shifted between them. Something fragile, impossible to name, but real. In the quiet that followed, both women lay awake in separate rooms, listening to the last drops tapping against the windows. Neither knew what the morning would bring, only that the silence between them had changed. Morning arrived with the kind of light that made everything look clean again. The storm had rinsed the world of its heaviness, leaving only the faint smell of wet earth drifting through the windows. Iris Rowe entered the ward earlier than usual, a quiet steadiness in her steps. The memory of the night still lingered like warmth in her palms, but she pushed it down beneath the surface of routine. When she opened the door to room 17, Riley Ivers was already standing beside the bed, one hand resting lightly on the crutch. Her back was straight, her jaw set, her eyes calm but unreadable. The sunlight drew a soft outline along her shoulders. "I thought you'd be sleeping," Iris said gently. "I don't sleep much," Riley replied. "Besides, I thought you'd be late." Iris smiled faintly. "I was tempted, but then I remembered someone values punctuality." Riley tilted her head, an expression somewhere between amusement and restraint crossing her face. "You remembered correctly. Let's begin." The words were the same as before, yet something in their tone was different. No longer a command, not quite an invitation either, but something quieter, something that carried trust beneath its discipline. Iris stepped closer, adjusting the position of the crutch. "Let's take it slow," she said. "The storm must have strained the muscles again." Riley nodded, accepting the guidance without argument. She shifted her weight, testing the balance, then took a small step forward. Iris walked beside her, one hand hovering near her waist, but not touching unless needed. The air between them was careful, charged, alive with the memory neither had spoken of. Their movements found a rhythm: step, pause, breath, another step. Every time Riley's body wavered, Iris adjusted her distance, never too far, never too close. They reached the far end of the room, turned, and made the slow journey back. Riley exhaled deeply when she sat again, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. "Better," Iris said. Riley met her gaze for a moment before replying, "You always say that." "Maybe because it's always true." Silence followed, but it was no longer heavy. It settled over them like a blanket, comfortable, necessary. That afternoon, they moved to the courtyard for the first time. The air outside carried the scent of rain-soaked grass, the kind of freshness that only follows thunder. Riley stood at the doorway, hesitant, her hand tightening around the crutch. "It feels strange," she murmured. "What does?" Iris asked. "Air without walls." Iris's smile was soft, but her eyes were kind. "Then breathe it in slowly." Riley did. The breeze lifted strands of her short hair, the sunlight caught on her lashes, and for the first time, her expression lost its armor. They began walking along the path that circled the small lawn. The gravel crunched softly beneath their feet, each sound blending with the hum of distant machines inside the building. Halfway through, Riley paused. "You ever get tired of this place?" Iris looked toward the windows of the ward. "Sometimes. It keeps people alive, but it also keeps them from living." Riley glanced at her, curious. "And you?" "I try to be the bridge," Iris said simply. "Between both." Riley nodded once, her voice dropping. "Maybe that's why you're here." Their steps resumed. The pace was slower now, but the distance grew. Each stride was a quiet rebellion against everything that had broken her before. By evening, when the sky turned gold, they sat on a bench near the edge of the garden. Riley's breathing was steady, her face still flushed from effort. Iris handed her a bottle of water, their fingers brushing briefly. This time, neither pulled away. "Progress," Iris said softly. Riley took a sip, then leaned back against the bench. "I hate that word." "Why?" "Because it always means someone's watching how far you've come." Iris tilted her head. "Maybe it can also mean someone is walking with you." The response made Riley's eyes soften, her voice quieter now. "You always twist words until they sound better." "Or until they sound truer," Iris replied. The evening faded into soft blue. A nurse called out from the building, reminding patients to return before curfew. Riley rose slowly, but her hand reached out just enough for Iris to notice. Not for support, not for balance, but as acknowledgement. Iris stood beside her, matching her pace as they returned inside. Later, after most of the ward had quieted, Iris came back to deliver fresh linens. Riley was sitting on the edge of the bed again, her shirt half-buttoned, the light from the bedside lamp tracing the line of her collarbone. She looked up, not surprised to see her. "You're persistent," she said. Iris smiled. "Someone has to be." Riley studied her for a moment, as if measuring the truth behind that answer. "Most people would have given up by now." "I'm not most people." That earned a small laugh, low and genuine. "No, you're not." They changed the sheets together, quiet, efficient, their hands brushing more than once. When the task was done, Iris folded the blanket over the corner of the bed. The movement was routine, yet her pulse betrayed her calm. Riley watched her. "You know, I've been thinking," she said. "That sounds dangerous." Riley smiled faintly. "You're lucky I'm unarmed." Iris chuckled, then turned serious again. "What were you thinking about?" "About control. About how much of it is just fear dressed in order." Iris paused, her eyes lifting toward her. "And?" Riley's gaze held hers. "And maybe it's not weakness to let someone stand close." The words hung there, suspended between them like light. Iris didn't answer right away. She simply nodded, as though acknowledging something sacred. The next few days unfolded like a slow rhythm neither of them wanted to disturb. Riley spoke more often, though never about emotions directly. She talked about the noise of helicopters over deserts, the sound of boots on sand, the smell of metal and dust. Iris listened without filling the spaces between sentences. She understood that silence, for Riley, was not avoidance, it was memory. During one session, Riley tried a longer walk down the corridor. Her steps were uneven but determined. Iris stayed close, her hand hovering near her side. When Riley stumbled slightly, Iris steadied her, and for a moment Riley leaned into her touch without hesitation. "I can do this," Riley whispered. "You're doing it," Iris said. When they stopped at the end of the hall, Riley's face carried something new, not pride, not defiance, but peace. She nodded once, breathing steadily. Progress, she admitted, the word no longer bitter. That night, the ward glowed under the dim lights. Iris walked past the rooms, checking on patients, but her mind remained anchored to one. When she finally reached Riley's door, it was half open. Inside, the officer sat with a small notebook on her lap. Her pen moved slowly across the page, no longer hesitant. "What are you writing?" Iris asked softly. Riley looked up, eyes reflecting the lamplight. "Nothing official. Something for myself." Iris smiled. "Then it must be important." Riley didn't respond, but the faint curve of her lips said enough. She closed the notebook and set it aside. The air between them grew quiet again, but this time it wasn't empty. For the first time since her injury, Riley lay down without tension in her shoulders. Iris stood by the doorway, watching the slow rhythm of her breathing. It was the kind of moment she would later struggle to describe simple, ordinary, and yet it carried the weight of something transforming. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The moonlight spilled across the window pane, thin and silver. Inside, two women existed in the same calm silence, no longer patient and nurse, but two hearts learning how to breathe in the same rhythm. The last week of the program arrived quietly, carrying a stillness that felt almost tender. The hospital grounds shimmered with late afternoon light, and the scent of disinfectant had grown familiar, like the steady pulse of the place. Iris Rowe moved down the corridor with her usual calm, though inside her chest something shifted with every step. She had watched wounds close before, but never one that reached so far beneath the skin. Riley Ivers was standing near the window when Iris entered. The crutch leaned against the frame, forgotten for the moment. Her posture was upright, but softer than it used to be, her movements slower, more thoughtful. The sunlight caught in her hair and turned it to a pale gold that Iris hadn't noticed before. "You're up early again," Iris said, setting down the tray. Riley nodded. "Habit dies hard. Some habits are worth keeping. Not all." Riley's gaze lingered on the sky outside. "I used to think discipline could fix everything. If I worked harder, pushed further, I could outrun the parts of me that hurt." Iris listened in silence, her hands folded loosely in front of her. Riley turned at last, her expression unguarded in a way Iris had never seen. "But you can't command yourself to heal, can you?" "No," Iris said softly. "You can only let it happen." For a moment they stood like that, the space between them filled with unspoken things. The light filtered through the blinds, drawing soft lines across Riley's face. That morning's session was their last. They moved together with quiet precision, a dance without music. Riley's steps were measured but steady, the crutch a formality now rather than necessity. Iris watched every movement with an ache she couldn't quite name. When they finished, Riley sat down slowly, catching her breath. "I won't need this much longer," she said, glancing at the crutch. "I know," Iris replied, "but it's not weakness to use it." Riley's mouth curved slightly. "That sounds like something you'd say." "Because it's true." Riley looked away, a faint smile still touching her lips. "You always believe in what you say, don't you?" Iris hesitated. "Only when I mean it." The silence that followed was gentle. It carried weight, but not the kind that hurt. Later that afternoon, they walked outside once more. The courtyard was warm, washed clean by the sun, the grass glinting like glass. Riley paused at the threshold, inhaling deeply, then took her first step onto the open ground without help. The shift in her movement was almost imperceptible, yet it filled the air with quiet triumph. "I forgot how it feels," Riley murmured. "To move without thinking?" Iris asked. "To move without fear," Riley corrected. They walked slowly, side by side, through the soft gold of evening. The breeze played at the edges of their clothes. Each step was steady, not because of strength alone, but because of trust. Halfway across the yard, Riley faltered slightly. Iris reached out instinctively, hand brushing her arm. Riley didn't pull away. Instead, she let herself lean, just for a breath, before straightening again. "You don't have to keep catching me," she said. "I'm not catching you," Iris answered. "I'm walking with you." That simple statement lingered in the air between them. Riley's eyes softened, her voice low. "You always know how to make it sound simple." "It is," Iris said. "You just make it complicated." The faintest laugh escaped Riley then, quiet but real, and the sound felt like sunlight breaking through after a long season of clouds. When they returned to the room, the light had turned amber. Riley sat by the bed while Iris replaced the last set of bandages she would ever need. Her hands were careful, her motions slower than usual, as if she were memorizing each one. "You'll have a scar," Iris said quietly. "I have worse." "This one's different," Iris replied. Riley looked at her. "How?" "It's the first you didn't hide." For a heartbeat, Riley didn't answer. Then her lips curved in a small, thoughtful smile. "Maybe because you saw it first." The simplicity of that truth stole Iris's breath for a moment. She finished tying the bandage, her fingers brushing against warm skin, the touch light but deliberate. When she stepped back, Riley's voice came softer. "You've stayed longer than you needed to." "I know." "Why?" Iris hesitated, then spoke without breaking her gaze. "Because I wanted to." The honesty in the room was raw, fragile, almost sacred. Riley's eyes searched hers as if trying to find a lie and finding none. Evening crept closer, turning the walls gold, then pink, then shadowed. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the building, the distant sound of carts rolling over tile. Finally, Riley spoke again. I used to believe strength meant standing alone. That if I let anyone close, I'd lose control. And now? Iris asked. Riley's shoulders lifted in a slow breath. Now I think strength might mean letting someone stay. Iris reached out, her fingers brushing Riley's hand, waiting for permission. Riley turned her palm upward, their hands meeting halfway. The contact was quiet, steady, not born of impulse but of understanding. They stood and walked toward the window. Outside, the sun was sinking, the horizon painted with deep orange and rose. Riley leaned lightly against the frame, Iris beside her. The warmth of the glass against their skin felt like proof of something small, invisible, but real. You'll leave soon, Riley said after a while. That's how it goes, right? Nurses move on. Patients recover. Sometimes, Iris said. But not always. Riley turned, her face close now, her breath soft against the air between them. You always find a way to say the right thing. Maybe because this time, I mean it more than usual. The world outside was almost silent. A few leaves drifted across the courtyard. In the distance, a bird called once, then quieted. Riley reached out, her fingertips grazing Iris's jaw as though testing whether the moment was real. Iris didn't move away. The kiss came gently this time, without fear or apology. It was not a secret stolen in the dark, but a promise whispered in the fading light. It held no urgency, only certainty, the kind that grows after everything fragile has already survived the fall. When they parted, Riley kept her forehead against Iris's for a moment longer. You've changed everything, she murmured. So have you, Iris replied. You just don't see it yet. They stayed like that until the room dimmed completely, the last of the sunset dissolving into night. The quiet that followed wasn't empty, it was full of the calm that comes after surrender. Later, as the ward fell asleep, Iris lingered by the doorway one final time. Riley sat on the bed, her expression soft, her eyes reflecting the light from the small lamp beside her. Get some rest, Iris said. Riley nodded. I will. Their eyes met once more, and something unspoken passed between them, something that belonged to neither medicine nor duty. It was simple, like the space between heartbeats. When Iris finally turned to leave, she felt the weight in her chest ease, not because she was walking away, but because she finally understood. Healing wasn't just the closing of wounds, it was learning when to stay and when to let yourself be held. Outside, the night air was cool, threaded with the scent of rain long past. Behind her, in room 17, Riley sat quietly, hand resting over the new bandage, breathing with ease. For the first time, her shoulders didn't feel heavy. She let herself smile, a real one, small and sure, as if she could still feel the warmth of another's hand in hers. In that stillness, there was no command, no fear, no distance, only the quiet truth that strength had never been about standing alone. It was about finding the courage to stay. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. What you've just witnessed is not only a tale of recovery, but a reminder that love often begins where strength softens. Iris and Riley found healing not through control, but through trust, through the quiet courage of letting someone in. At She and She, we share stories like this of women who find connection in the most unexpected places, of tenderness born from resilience. Subscribe to discover more moments that speak softly, love deeply, and stay long after the final word.